Hey folks, Troy Dooley, the Beachside CEO. I'm out here in the beautiful Morgan Sports Park. So this weekend we got a lot of soccer going on, a lot of baseball going on. For a small fishing village on the Emerald Coast, this community loves its sports. You know, Texas, they love Friday night lights and all that. Well, we have our own Friday night lights, but a lot of it is softball and baseball and soccer. And I tell you, if you've never watched kids and adults play, it's an amazing thing. You literally see teamwork, you see competition. If it's soccer, you learn a whole lot of new rules, I'll tell you that, but it's a blast. Hey, I want to cover something here because over the last couple of 3 days, a lot of feedback is coming in, a lot of questions. Troy, Truth in Advertising, did an article on IML and they used your video. And what is your response? What is your side of the story? And it's like, there's not really a story here at all. You know, this is an article put up by an advocacy group that is, in my opinion, may be one of the best that has ever launched. They don't just look at direct sales companies, they look at every company. Now, do they get it right all the time? Are they unbiased all the time? That in lies the question. You'll have to forgive me, we got a lot of the guys coming in and leaving town today. It's Friday. And most of you know we live on an island, so I live right by the airport. Here's the deal. Over the years, I've used articles they've written on my websites. I've used a lot of things that they've done and used it both pro and con. Hey, this is what I would do, or this is what I won't do. Now, I will say, when it comes to Jason Bagley, who is literally the staff writer at TINA that wrote the article on IML, in my opinion, and I've read several of his articles that he's written there and elsewhere. He's a journalist, and I've got to say, he's not just a journalist, he's a journalist with passion. He's a journalist that probably has a romantic euphoria for what he does. That's how he is. It's what I call wisdom journalism. And he's not just looking to go out and harm a company or go out and kill somebody's dreams. When you read the article at IML, he's digging for questions. And I got to commend him on this too. What he did at the end of the article is he literally reached out to IML and said, hey, I have some questions. I'd like to get your responses to these. And I've seen those questions because I work with Christopher Terry. I'm an advisor over there. He said, Troy, here's the questions that Truth in Advertising sent us. I said, let's get with the compliance team. Let's get with the legal team. You need to respond to these. You need to look at this. This needs to be the benchmark that we use moving forward. And that's just my belief on that. So my hat's off to him. I want to look at, though, everything that he wrote, because I believe that when we look at this, and I've written down several things this time because I don't want to miss something. I believe that this is where we need to go with this. And if you're in iMarkets Live, this is a unauthorized response to the article. And the reason I'm doing this is because he used the video interview I did in 2016 with Christopher Terry as part of the premise of this article. And when I saw that, and I talked to my brain trust and I talked to my team, they said, hey, well, I believe that we can go ahead and just pop this, talk about it. It doesn't violate your agreement with IML. If IML's legal team disagrees with me, then what will happen is they'll give me a cease and desist and my career at IML may be over. I mean, that's just part of it. But I want to look at things. Number one of the first things that Jason raises in his article is no learning required, and then he puts really. Now that's based on Christopher Terry's interview with me, and you guys have heard me talk about this for years now. It doesn't matter what it is that you're doing. You have to be a student of your company and a student of your industry. Christopher tried, and I believe did a pretty good job at creating a platform for people where they could go in, and if they just modeled what other people were doing, they could have that same success. Now, here's the key to that. Not everything goes up. It doesn't matter if it's crypto, it doesn't matter if it's Forex, it doesn't matter if it's futures, bonds, doesn't matter. What goes up comes down. I own metals, I own crypto, I own stock. I've watched it go up, I've watched it go down. The concept here is you buy when it's low, you sell when it's high, but most people don't do that. So when Jason raises that concern, it's very valid. I can say this, between 2016 and 2018, the actual part of the platform, which was the actual mirror trading type deal, where there was no real money, you were just actually modeling it. Then you could go and open up an account and still use this and model it. That's been wiped out and gone away with, because they found, in my opinion, that people were not really getting as engrossed in monitoring their trades as they should be. So what they were doing was trying to set this all up automatically, and it doesn't work that way. That's why for years day trading was not working the way it should, is because people just thought, oh, I could just go over and do this and then everything's fine. No, it doesn't work that way. So Jason raises a great concern there. A lot of that concern has already been taken care of. Nowadays, the company literally shifted to become a true educational platform, to where they've got, I believe now, 24/7 live education that's on there. They literally talk to people at different stages, whether they're a novice or an advanced trader. I do have some friends that are in iMarkets Live in the field as customers. That's what they do. Now they are building their business, but they were customers first. One of my good friends, who I'm not going to name his name, he was in the health and wellness arena for a long, long time. He got out of it, went back into traditional sales and marketing. When he saw IML, he called me and said, what do you think? And I was very clear. Look, when it comes to Forex, dude, that's like the highest risk out there. That's up there with the crypto, the commodities, gold and silver. If you're going to do that, you need to be cautious. Well, he was cautious and went in and learned. And I believe that's what everybody does. So even though in the interview, Chris is talking about this is a turnkey system, you don't have to be smart, you don't have to have a high education, you don't have to learn, I do think that part of that was taken out of context in it. Number two, costly tools don't eliminate risk. 100% agree with that. You know, it doesn't matter how many tools you have when it comes to investing. You can be using a trading bot, you can be using a platform, you can be looking at historicals. Hear that word, historicals? Okay, no matter what it is, the risk is still there. And when it comes to equities, we see this a lot. We can see a shift in the market. We don't see it quite as much in the stock side because there's so much regulatory control, if you will. And don't get me wrong, Forex, crypto, all that still has some regulatory control. And people, oh, Troy, crypto doesn't. Well, it does now because there's futures trading in crypto. And see, here's the key. When you get into the futures market, not just in Forex, but let's just look at futures for a second. There's a lot of risk there. It can move a market, it can move a currency, just like just a fraction of a point. And big institutions who have millions and billions of dollars out there, well, they can gain lots of money, and yet you lose at the same time. There's a couple of good books that I would challenge anyone to read to understand more about the backside of how money, big corporations, large family firms actually operate. It's The House of Rothschilds. You can go get it on Amazon. I think it's paperback. It's a 2-volume. It takes the Rothschild family, who literally, when it comes to banking and finance, since the 1700s have been the #1 family in this business. You literally can read and understand a little bit more about how all these markets work and how they are manipulated to a certain extent. So when Jason writes on here, costly tools don't eliminate risk, 100% agree with that. But I don't see that IML's tools are costly. When you look at their monthly subscription, I think it's less than $200. When I look at my monthly subscriptions of what I pay for just in marketing and public relations and softwares to be able to monitor the analytics for clients and monitor our analytics and see what's out there, we spend a substantial amount more than that per client, not even counting what I spend on myself. And we still sometimes fall short. You don't get it right. So he raises a great concern. We need to understand that all tools work on a historical. They don't work on the future, because you can't. So when you're joining a company like this, you need to understand that. So I think, again, Jason did wonderful. Now, I can say this too, as a former licensed broker, when we had clients joining our company and they were getting ready to retire, they were in that middle to latter stages in life, we would never put them in a high risk. But every client that I had that was in their 20s and 30s would say to me, Troy, we want a little bit higher risk. We want to be able to earn as much as we can. When you look at iMarkets Live and some of the other companies that are out there, you start to see that the majority of their cultures are millennials. The only place I haven't seen that true is at Cryptogenics, where it's baby boomers. Don't know why that is. But when you look at wealth generators, or whatever they call their new company, when you look at IML, when you look at some of these companies that are no longer in existence, you see this. You see a younger generation. When you read the articles from Forbes and Fortune, CNBC, Bloomberg, and you listen to what people are saying, they actually will tell you that based on surveys that have been done, millennials would rather invest in crypto and high risk than they would stocks or real estate. So part of this is a shift in the culture. We're still studying that ourselves. It doesn't make sense at sometimes, but we want to study that. It could be that they just don't want to do what their parents did, for that matter. So we're going to keep covering that, but that was a phenomenal point number 2 that Jason Bagley made over there. Number 3, let's look at what we've got. Brokerage and brokerage fees. He said, no, they're not included. Well, no, they're not included. A lot of times people think these educational companies are somehow selling the investment services. That is not true. And in this case, it's not true. Literally, you can go into iMarkets Live, you can get a subscription, you can learn from the bottom to the top, and then you go out and you actually invest your money in an account that only you control. The company never touches that. And let me say this, if you're in a company where the company says, hey, give us your money and we'll trade it for you. I don't care if it's crypto, I don't care if it's futures, I don't care if it's Forex, I don't care what it is. That is not right. They have to be licensed as a broker. It's a big deal. Now, some of the educational companies need to be licensed as financial advisors if they're crossing that line based on the 1933, 1934 Securities and Exchange Act. So there's still borderline here. There's still gray areas that you have to work in. If somebody tells you that a company doesn't have to be registered, that may be true, but you need to ask them, has that come from your SEC attorney? Do you have a legal team that specializes in securities and exchange rules, or did that come from some guy that says he's an MLM attorney? Okay, that's important there, because you've got to have the right legal team. Not every attorney is equal, if that makes sense, okay? So the concerns that he raises here, I don't think are valid concerns at this point, because I believe that anyone joining IML or any of these other companies fully understand either they have to have an outside account or they don't, whether that's in crypto or whether it's in futures, whether it's in Forex, doesn't matter what it is. So that one, I don't want to touch on a lot. I think that it's probably valid the way he put it in his article. I just don't think it would be a valid concern. I would have picked a different concern that is more inclusive. Now, he did bring something up that I think is totally supposition on his part. And he mentions inside of his article, in the section under brokerage fees, that Christopher Terry was alluding to the fact, hey, we don't touch your money, so we don't have to be regulated, or we can bypass regulations. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. I have had countless hours of conversation where Christopher Terry is very astute and in tune with the fact there are several different agencies, not just the Securities and Exchange. There's a futures exchange. There's probably 5 different agencies in the US alone, not counting the 50 states that actually govern the trading, govern everything that has to do with IML. The same thing rings true internationally in each country. Okay, so each country is a little bit different. I'm here to tell you right now, back in March, we worked with several legal teams to find the right one for IML, so that in the countries where they have been operating and the laws are very clear or just got enacted in some cases, hey, if you're in this type of a business, you need to be registered with our country, you need to do certain things. They've got an international legal team now on top of all that, working that. So to allude to the fact that IML thinks they're above the law, which is kind of where this went, that is a fallacy. That is not true whatsoever. I've talked to all their COO, their CFO, their executive, their chief executive officer, their VPs. All of them realize how regulated their industry is. I just want to say that. Let's look at number 4. Missing income statement. Absolutely, I went and checked after what he said that. The company since January has been shifting platforms, and anybody that understands software and databases understand it's a process, okay? Sometimes you're on the new one, sometimes you're on the old one, you're trying to make this thing work. I looked at the link, I've put a call into Christopher Terry and the compliance team to say, hey, what do we got here? Now, there is a possibility that got pulled down because it was out of date. It's 2018. I do know the legal team and compliance team is working on the 2018 income disclosure statement. I told Christopher, look, let's at least get something up there because it's very important that you have the income disclosure statement. Not because IML says, hey, go use income claims. Matter of fact, it's just the opposite. In the policies and procedures that we created, it very clearly says no income statements. We work on that daily. We educate, we hold accountable, reps in the field. From the matter of fact, I shouldn't say that. We hold accountable the executive team all the way down to reps in the field, okay? That's just the way it is because everybody can get passionate. And if you think there's not a CEO in the business that doesn't say, I am proud of my leader who just broke XYZ, who just bought XYZ, who just went XYZ, well then guess what? You're fooling yourself. And honestly, if there's not a CEO out there publicly praising their people, whether they're in direct sales or an employee of a company, well then doggone, you need to do a better job at being a people person because people will do more for recognition than they ever will for money. I know that because I've had almost 40 years in the people business and I know exactly what people do when they're rewarded. I've got a baby girl who is a national gymnast. I know what she does. She could care less about money. She wants that medal around her neck. So I understand where that's at. So guys, listen, we're gonna get into income claims in a minute because he raises that point. But here, where we're talking about the missing income statement, again, very valid. You have to have one, but at IML, I want it to be very clear, we don't approve income claims at all, period. We don't include lifestyle claims, that's an income claim. We don't do that. We don't have health and wellness claims. Now, we've added to this, so you guys need to do this. In January on stage, I made it very clear, not January, March, I made it very clear to almost 2,000 in attendance. You can't make claims on your trades either. You can't do that, period. End of conversation. That is governed by so many different rules and regulations. And that was a shock to them. They didn't understand that. And it's like, yeah, this just because it's your trade, just because you're showing it, it's your account, it's still classified an income claim. It's still an enticement. So we've been policing that, and I'm proud since March, man, the field leaders are policing each other. And that's helping us because we believe in education and accountability far from just termination or suspension. I'd rather a person be able to fulfill their dreams in whatever income opportunity that they're rolling with. Number 5, unrealistic income claims. Man, Jason nailed this one. And actually, we've sent some of these on over to the compliance team so they could work on these because we go through the internet left and right. And some people will say, well, Troy, look at the date on this. How'd you miss it? It was from 2017. You can miss them because we're constantly looking at Instagram. We're constantly looking at Facebook. We're looking at Google. We're looking at YouTube. We're looking literally now, we're looking at international social media platforms to try to hone this thing back down. Thank goodness the leaders are helping us out. But these are issues. I don't care if it's my buddy Chris Terry. I don't care if it's a brand new person I haven't met. You can't do the income claims. And a lifestyle claim is classified an income claim. So these are iffy. Now, I've got a good friend of mine that joined IML, and he said, hey, Troy, these aren't income claims. These aren't lifestyle claims about IML. I did all this when I was with another company. Well, that's even worse because now the story is looking like, look what I did at IML when really you did it in another story. I get on to people that do before and after pictures this way. They were with one company where they lost all their weight. Then they join another company and what do? They still put up their old pictures and say, look what I've done. Well, no, you didn't do it on that product. So income claims, there's no defense. Matter of fact, you guys have watched my videos for years now, and you know my passion against lifestyle and income claims. But here's what we're doing at IML, just so that you guys know. I personally hate being told you can't do that. Don't do that. And guess what? You do too. So at IML, we're actually creating a dues. This is the IML way. See, I believe if you give somebody the direction to go, you give them the pathway to go. They'll stay between the lines 95% of the time. When they get out, then you see if they did it intentionally or if they just slipped off the side of the road. If they just slipped off the side of the road, you fix it. If it's intentional and you continually see them doing that, then we take matters to a whole new level. And in a lot of cases, we can fine them thousands of dollars, depending on their level in the comp plan. We can suspend them, we can terminate them. The key here is that we don't approve of just bogus income claims. I will tell you right now, Christopher Terry loves income. He loves to share. They're not, to him, Troy, this is him. This is his New York street mentality, and I love it. They're my family. I'm celebrating their victory. This is why I'm in business. Why can't I do this? Well, because this is what the government says. That's the reason. And he gets frustrated as all get out from it. You know, and that's his deal. Matter of fact, it's interesting. Here's another thing he gets frustrated with. You know, I mentioned the actual complaint that they talk about in here. And in that complaint, you can tell that it was a professionally made complaint because they're looking for keyword traction. They're looking for search engine optimization because they cover IML, wealth generators, Vima. They cover all these companies that are somehow, because of people in the business, are interwoven. And right in the middle of it, they say, well, Christopher Terry runs this whole company from his hotel room in Vegas. They don't even have an office. And I just had to laugh at that because that's one area where I wish Jason Bagley would have done a little bit more due diligence. They have a substantial office in New York. That's where the actual offices are. Now, their West Coast office is in Vegas, not in a hotel. Mr. Terry owns a 3-bedroom condominium. They have real estate there that are office spaces inside this giant, what do you call it? Well, it's kind of like the Ritz-Carlton. You have a hotel area and then you have residence. This is a home. This is a multi-million-dollar home. And part of the amenities of that is you have executive office space where you can have meetings, you can do stuff. But the corporate offices where the compliance team is, accounting is, where all of the administration takes place, is in New York. Christopher Terry is in the field constantly with his leaders. Vegas is in the middle. It's easier to fly there than some other places, and that's why he does it. Now, is that my opinion? Part of that's my opinion. Part of it's fact. You can go look at the real estate that they actually own in Vegas, and you'll see this. So I wanted to bring that in. But the unrealistic income claims, 100%. No problem with that. Some of the examples that he shows aren't really income claims, but when you tie them all together, because of the narrative that it creates, I can see exactly why Mr. Bagley put them in there. It makes total sense to me, 100%. Let's go. We're almost to the end of this, guys, and I know it's a little longer, but I think this is important. Number 6, leadership has baggage. Well, crying out loud. Now, Mr. Bagley's young, a journalist, so he's out there looking for things. Because of his ethics, I mean, you can see this. I told you guys, he has a romantic euphoria about what he does. He is going to bring good through his talent, or he wouldn't be doing it. So the odds of him having any public, professional baggage, slim to none. We all have personal baggage, can't do anything with it. But when we look at the leadership and the baggage at IML, look, let's be realistic here. I have more baggage than I think anyone in that company. At least that's what they perceive when they look, because of my settlement with the Securities and Exchange Commission with Zeke Rewards. But see, I don't hide that fact. That was a learning experience for me. I screwed up over there in a couple of cases, but I'm proud of the work that I did, because had that work actually been implemented, maybe they wouldn't have gotten in trouble. Sad thing is, I split hairs. And that's something that you can't do. So when I look at the baggage that he brings in, and I want to talk about just one individual, because that's who he brings in, Mr. Alec Morton. Alex is a young, energetic, he laughs. I used to call him a snot-nosed kid. And he's actually older than that now. But let me share a little bit about my background with Alex. One of my dear friends, BK Barreco, owned Vima. Alex was a very passionate builder over there. Early 20s. Ran the Young People's Revolution. YPR, I think is what he called it. Income claims, lifestyle claims. Look at us. Look what we're doing. Look at our watches. Look at our clothes. Look at our cars. Look at all this. And I yelled and screamed and hollered So when VEMA got hit by Truth in Advertising and then the Securities and Exchange, or the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, I blamed a lot of that on what Alex and his team was doing. And of course, they went somewhere else, companies down, everybody split up, everybody went somewhere. And you can read this in the article. But I'll never forget the night that Christopher Terry calls me. And now because he's in Vegas and I'm on the Emerald Coast, there's a 2-hour time difference. He said, I know it's late, but I need you to talk to somebody. I said, okay, who is it? He goes, Alex Morton. I said, why am I talking to Alex? He goes, because I just hired him as my VP of sales. I said, okay, that'd be great. Let's get on the phone with him. So Alex gets on and Christopher says, look, I just want you guys to talk. I want you guys to hash out any differences that you have, talk. And Alex laid out his frustration towards the bald-headed old guy with the mustache. And I listened. You know, Troy, you never reached out to me. You don't know me. You don't know da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Very valid points. And then I addressed my concerns with Alex. And over about a 2-hour conversation, Christopher jumped off. We actually jumped back on a call together. We started to find a mutual respect. I don't think we either one trusted each other at the time. Not at all. It's like, man, I just don't know about this. But over the last couple of years, we have grown a trust for each other. There's times when Alex and his passion is out there on the net and I'll see him throw something up and I'll text him real quick and say, Alex, you need to take that down, reword that, make it like this, otherwise we're crossing a line. I'll see him hanging out with certain people and I'll text and say, hey, be careful there because these guys are still under scrutiny over here and you don't want a lot of stuff tying you to that when that's not real, you were just hanging out. But we all have baggage. Now, Mr. Bagley has taken certain things that Alex has currently stated and said, and they probably are borderline, to be quite honest, looking at how he said it, or at least how Mr. Bagley wrote it, because I don't know that he said it that way, but looking at how he wrote it, I could see where I need to have a talk with Alex and say, okay, let's hone that back down a little bit. But I've seen a change. I've seen I guess a growing up, if you will. Alex is not perfect. You know, Alex is a personality that is going to drive nails in a coffin for some people and raise the sail on a sailboat for others. And that's the way we all are. You either like people or you don't like people. Every leader in every company I know has baggage. One of my dearest friends who runs a company that's now doing close to $400 million after a couple years has baggage. We can either hang on to our baggage or we can say, look, it's there and we got to move through it. We're not perfect. We're going to slip. We're going to screw up. People have to hold us accountable. It's like the adage, friends don't let friends drive drunk. Well, you know what? Friends don't let friends screw up intentionally. They help them. I believe Mr. Bagley has done exactly that for iMarkets Live. He's done exactly that for me, for BK, or not BK, for Alex. He's done it for everyone. Because we're able to look at this and say, hey, he raised some valid points. We need to get this thing straightened up. We need to do this right. So when I look at all this, he's got some great valid points here, especially when it comes to income claims. When it comes to baggage, crap, man, we all have baggage. We grow through it, we live through it. I don't know anybody in network marketing that doesn't have baggage. He says you need to read your agreements. Heck yeah, you do, 100%. I yell at people all the time. I get these calls, Troy, company's being mean to me, they terminated me, they suspended me, they did all this. Did you read the policies and procedures? No. Well, you violated them. Don't violate the policies and procedures, dadgummit. Do what you are supposed to do. So yes, he's 100% about that. He closes out on 2 points. One, what's the deal with the 19 countries and territories they're banned in, or they've banned it, they don't do business in? Well, I think really what he's talking about is Montana. And there are certain states where we just don't do business. There are some states where we do business. As for the countries that we don't do business in, there's two different reasons for that one. Number one, there are certain countries that are sanctioned against doing business in. The United States has made that very clear. So yeah, we're not going to do business in Iran. We're not going to be doing business in the Sudan. We don't do business in some European countries. Okay, that we don't do business in China. Okay, but then there's other reasons for fraud protection and stuff, that we don't do business in some other countries where fraud is high. So it doesn't matter why you don't do business. The fact is we don't do business there, and we don't allow business there because we want to do it right. I can tell you that there's some countries right now that we're working through a regulatory process in with IML to make sure that they are legally compliant as a foreign entity to do business in that country. Same thing rings true if you're in the CBD market. You know, if you're selling CBD, you can't legally sell CBD in Canada unless you're actually in Canada, you're a Canadian company. So there are regulations like that that we dig through. As Mr. Bagley goes deeper into this, I believe he'll find there's certain things, certain reasons why we don't do business in certain countries. And then he closes it out with the lawsuits that have been going back and forth between wealth generators and IML. I'm not getting into those lawsuits. That's public record, public information. It's easy to tell in direct sales. There's always lawsuits. I have good friends in both of these companies. Some of the investors and the founders of these companies are dear friends of mine. I've had lots of communication between the executive teams, the influencers at wealth generators and at IML. And there's times when you just can't get something fixed outside of court. In this case, I think this thing was settled just a couple days ago, and you guys can go look it up. I'm not going to talk about the lawsuits. You know, that will all come out in the second article though, because I believe that IML is going to address that with Mr. Bagley. So I know this was about 30 minutes long. It's longer than most of our videos are today, but I think it was very important that I do this because I want you guys to understand the unauthorized version. I am working with an authorized version that will come out. There'll be answers to Tina that Mr. Bagley will get because he was so professional in reaching out and asking this. I've also made it very clear to the successor over at MLM Watchdog that I would give him those questions and the answers once we've given them to Tina so that he could fulfill his story and his obligation as a journalist. I'll do it the same thing to anyone else that actually asks who run a blog, whether that's Behind MLM, whether it's Business from Home, whether it's what is it, realscam.com. I don't care what it is. If you guys are honestly interested in the answers, then I'll be more than happy to provide them once we have them from IML. Live life like it's an epic adventure. Stay dangerous, stay strong, and if you're in network marketing, then act like it.